It was really special for him to be with all of you. Really special. All right, Jewel, let's get started. Hi, Julie, by the way.
Hi. Hi.
You had a long day yesterday,
Oh,
right?
yes, a very long day, but a great day.
David called me, I think, 1 a.m, cleaning it all
Yeah,
up.
we got home after 12. Yeah.
Oh, all
It
right.
was okay, though. I'm not going in today, but tomorrow I'll go in early and get some more stuff put away. I apologize. So for some reason, I can't make a PDF on my computer right now. And so we have the class side by side. I know it's not ideal, but that's the only way.
Okay,
I
I don't have, I actually, believe it or not, don't have it printed out. So let me get my glasses. Hold on.
It up.
Over there. Okay, no problem. No problem. Okay. All right, everybody. Back to the books. Well, you guys are immersed in books with all your teachers, but back to the books together. It's really, thank you for, hi, Gail. I'll see you soon.
Hi.
Can't wait to see you.
You guys have the class up? I'm sorry, I don't see that it's up.
I see the class. Does everyone else see the class?
I'm not seeing that it's up, but that's okay as long as you guys are.
Just tell me if everybody sees the class. Thumbs up? Yeah, okay, fine.
Okay.
Very good.
Thank you. I'm going to mute everyone so we can get started.
Okay. Oh, and I'm not muted. You can hear me?
No, now you need to mute yourself. Unmute yourself, Ellie, and I'll mute myself so you can get going.
Okay, everybody. Thank you, and I appreciate, and I'm sorry for such a long break. I had our family and just kind of threw myself into that with a lot of gratitude. And then it was a week of recovering, and I'm back, and it's great to be with everybody. I really missed you all. I kept calling David every night. Who have you seen? Who have you talked to? And it's I really wished I was there. So I'm just sending everybody a lot of love. And we're back to Avos, right where we stopped. We were in chapter 2, verse 5. We're now in verse 6. And I'm going to get you the Hebrew, because it's always better in Hebrew. Okay. And he, Hillel, Haya Omer, Hillel used to say, Ein bor yare chet. Bore, I wrote bore here. I translated it from one of the translations. Like an uncouth person, a wild person, a person with, I don't know, no sense of civility or whatever it is. Yare chet. He cannot be God-fearing, sin-fearing. V'lo Amha Arts Hasid. In Amha Arts can't be pious. In Amha Arts, I'm just gonna say in Amha Arts, and then we're gonna talk about what that is. V'lo hab yashan lamed. A shy person cannot learn. V'lo hakafdan melamed. A impatient person cannot teach. V'lo kol hamarbib schora machkim. And a person overoccupied in business, a person overoccupied in business does not always become wise. And then the famous verse, Uvamakom she'ein anashim hishtadel lehiot ish. In a place where though there are no worthy people, strive to be worthy. Okay, what we have here from Hillel, who of course features so prominently in Pirkei Avot, and these are like the great pieces of wisdom from one of the great sages of Judaism. So they're really gems, they're jewels. They were like almost little pieces, little gems of wisdom given to us by one of the great transmitters of Judaism from the biblical era, from the era of the temple in Jerusalem, to the change over into rabbinic Judaism. Hillel was one of the most important figures that we had. And what he's basically telling us is there are qualities that they're not obvious. Like some of the qualities that we learn about in Pirkei Avot are very obvious. If you have excessive pride or lust or desire for honor, they're almost like obvious problematic midot, obvious problematic character traits. And then we learn about them and we can see them in ourselves. But these character traits that Hillel talks about here are a little bit more subtle. And so really, as with everything in Pirkei Avot, we really have to ask ourselves, what is the bore within me? What is the Amha Arts? We're going to learn what that means within me. Where is my bashfulness or my modesty or my inhibitedness beautiful, helpful, powerful, and where am I depriving myself of essential lessons and essential forward movement in my life through almost like an excessive bashfulness? An impatient one cannot teach. This is not just referring to teachers. It's certainly referring to parents, and it's really referring to anybody in any sort of hierarchical relationship or any modeling relationship. What does it mean to be impatient? Those who are occupied excessively with business will not become wise in Torah. So again, don't necessarily read business, but read excessive interest in things that are not rooted in myself as a godly person relating to others as godly people, my quest for a relationship with God. What is excessively imbalanced in me? And the last one, again, this is all about you. And these are kind of more subtle qualities. Where in my life do I need to stand up? There are times when other people can do certain things. I don't have to fight every battle. I don't have to fight every battle. But I sort of like, it's really interesting. Like we have, this year in Israel, there were it's a 20-year record. There were 38,000 immigrants to Israel this year, 38,000 new olim, and half of them, so 15 plus 4 is 19, is that right? 19,000? Did I get that right? 19,000 were from Russia and Ukraine. So 19,000 Russians and Ukrainian refugees, and the Russians are also in a very difficult place, came to Israel this year. So there's like an enormous imperative of helping them. So we kept asking ourselves, like David and I kept asking ourselves, like, is this a place where like you've got to stand up and help? And we thought about how we could, where we didn't feel as needed. But the idea here, which we're going to learn, is it's your obligation to determine if your unique contribution is absolutely essential. And if it is, you're required to do something about it. But I'm jumping the gun. Okay, so we have these kind of, I don't know, I keep repeating myself, but I just think they're not obvious little gems of wisdom about how to be in the world, how to advance morally and spiritually in this world, and specifically which qualities obstruct this path. In other words, we're here to learn. We're here to learn from everything that happens in our lives. We're here to move forward. We're here to connect to ourselves, others, to God through his Torah. We're here to move forward in our lives. And these qualities actually get in our way. And so we're never looking at these theoretical people like a bore, like a real uncouth person, or an Amha Arts, or someone excessively preoccupied with business. You're looking for it really within yourself. So let's take it from the top. What does it mean? I'll read it again. And what's really funny about the Hebrew, here the English is a bore, but in Hebrew, the word is a bur. So it says, ein bur yarei. So it's funny, it's the same word. I don't know, I don't think bor comes from bur, but I just think it's interesting that it's the same word. A bor cannot fear sin, nor can an Amha Arts be pious. So what is a bore? What is a bore? So you could, on the simplest level, he's a bore. He's like a empty-headed person. But really, the word bor in Hebrew means something. It actually means it's a word. It might be Aramaic. I'm not sure. Sorry about that. I don't know. I can't remember because I didn't recognize the word. So it's either Hebrew or Aramaic. It's either a Torah word or a modern word. I don't think it's a modern word, which is talking about an empty field where nothing's been planted. No knowledge or wisdom has been implanted to take root and flower. So what is this saying? A bore cannot fear sin. I think what this is telling us is, is that the real way to grow and change, although Judaism does say, like, do the action first and things will follow, but the real way to grow and change is to learn about whatever topic matters to you. So you can't strive for something unless you understand it. You can't grow in something that you're not learning about. So if anybody wants to change, if someone wants to quit smoking, for example, then you really need to learn what happens when you smoke. What would your life look like if you didn't smoke? What makes you take that cigarette? How good do you feel before anticipating the cigarette? How good does the feeling of the cigarette last? When does the yucky, shame, icky feeling start to set in? So if a person is working on not smoking cigarettes, they can't just stop smoking cigarettes, right? It doesn't work like that. They stop smoking cigarettes and then they rely on willpower, right? Willpower is like a muscle. It's finite. It doesn't last forever. So just like everything finite, it peters out. When you're triggered, you just smoke again. And then you have shame about yourself that you smoked. So then guess what you do when you feel shame? You smoke. So there you go. There's the cycle. So here what we're learning is that if a person doesn't want to smoke, they can't just say, I'm not smoking anymore, right? Because then they're relying on like white knuckling and willpower. What they really need to do is learn about the nature of their addiction, the nature of how good it actually feels, and then how bad it feels after, and understand the whole process until they get to the point where the knowledge affects their emotions, where they actually don't even want it. And then the behavior really follows that, which is, it's not hard for me not to partake of something that I don't even want. It's like if you hate papaya, right? So if you don't like the taste of papaya, then it's not hard not to eat it, right? So that's the nature of behavioral change. And I think that that's really what this is saying here, is that a person who hasn't, it doesn't mean they're bad. It doesn't mean they're bad people. It means that they're empty of the knowledge of, let's call it the growing in your relationship with God, or Torah. And in this case, it's really referring to Torah, of Torah learning. So you can't fear or want or quit or commit to something that you haven't learned about. So that's really what it means here, is that it's likening a bore to its I think Mishnaic definition, which is an empty field. Nothing's been planted in it. So by nature, that person can't get to fear of sin, nor can an Amha Arts be a Hasid. Who is an Amha Arts? This is really interesting. So you've got kind of like the lower level of, I don't even know what it is. How can I yearn, cleave, be drawn to something that I have no idea what it is? By the way, this is really, there's the four sons are, you can really trace it from the Haggadah, but I don't think we have time for that. But then it says, nor can an unlearned person be pious. So pious is a more subtle, higher level than fearing sin. But really, who is an Amha Arts? So an Amha Arts is really discussing a person. The closest character I can liken to an Amha Arts for you is Tevya the Milkman from Fiddler on the Roof, right? Tevya the Milkman loved tradition. right? He sang it out loud. He belted it out loud. He loved tradition. He kept he kept the mitzvot because that's what a Jew does, tradition, right? But he didn't necessarily know what and why and what it means for the soul, and what it means for the soul to connect to its creator through the mitzvot. Those are not the language that Tevye spoke. Tevye did it because his father did it, and his father did it because his father did it. And really, if you look at the Hebrew, what it's really saying is an Amha Arts is someone who's not a bore. He actually does. Now, remember, this is written, 2000 years ago. But an Amha Arts is somebody who, but the lessons are always eternal and never cease to be relevant. And Amha Arts is actually somebody who's learned. They really have learned. But they haven't learned. They know they might do the mitzvahs, but they haven't learned. They haven't learned sort of the inner content, the deep spiritual reasons for why they do what they do. And so they can't be pious. What does pious mean? Pious doesn't mean the outward signs of, super ultra orthodoxy. It really means you can't yearn. You can't desire to connect in a really deep way if you're doing it for tradition. So really what this is saying, and I'm going back to what I was talking about before with smoking, with behavioral change, that we can't yearn for what we don't learn about. And the more we learn about something, the more we can say, oh, I want this, or, oh, I understand this. And so I think what this is really telling us is the more you learn, the more you connect to Torah in an inner way, the more you can access the feelings within you of Youre, of actually fearing going against Hashem, actually cleaving and desiring to cleave to Hashem. It starts with knowledge. And that I've been thinking about this a lot. I've really been thinking about this a lot, that it starts with knowledge, it goes into emotions, and then it goes into behavior. If you want to take on something, or you want to stop doing a specific habit, if you start with the behavior, then you're relying on like what I would call white knuckling or willpower, which is just like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to have the cigarette. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And then just like any muscle, willpower dies out and you cave in, and then you feel shame. I'm a loser. I can't do it. And you feel all sorts of terrible things about yourself. And when you feel terrible things about yourself, what do? You smoke. And the cycle goes around and around again. The answer to that, the antidote to that is first learn. And that's really what I think this is referring to. What a bore is on the lowest level of doesn't know anything at all. And Amha Arts is someone who does what his father did, which, and by the way, we have that a lot in America, not my generation, not the older generation, but your grandparents' generation, that there were a lot of, the Amha Arts it's a somewhat negative term, but we did suffer Jewishly in America because of this concept of Amha Arts, that people came from Europe and they weren't necessarily steeped in education. So they did it because that's what a Jew does. And because it was sort of without joy and without deep inner content, their children said, I'm not interested. I don't want this. I want to be American. Yesterday, Yosef and I rented The Quiz Show. It's such a wonderful movie. You probably saw it a long time ago, but it's all about it's the 50s. And John Turturro actually plays the main character. Such a wonderful movie. But he was like that swarthy Jewish, very like Semitic. And then Ralph Fiennes, I don't know if I pronounced his last name right. He's the waspy, Van Doren, wealthy guy. And that was sort of that was the feeling. And the generation said, if this is what Judaism is, like, I don't want it. And they left. And they left. So what this is really telling us is desire, true desire for anything, and also for a relationship to Hashem, has to be based first on knowledge, on knowing what it is that you actually want to cleave to, which makes you want to cleave to it, and then behavior can follow that. Okay, so and here Rabbi Rosenfeld says pretty much the same thing. And Amha Arts can therefore fear sin. He will honor and uphold the tradition passed along to him, even if he doesn't understand it all that well. But piety is beyond him. Piety means sublimating oneself and growing to appreciate the Torah. It implies understanding the meaning and significance behind the laws, going beyond the letter of the law. And without the benefit of Torah study, the Amha Arts will never achieve this. The Torah gives depth to the understanding of Judaism. It teaches not only respect for our tradition, but true appreciation of the law. With it, we will grow to love the Torah's commandment and way of life, and will thirst for knowledge and understanding of God. Without Torah study, however, our observance can be an expression of fear and perhaps nostalgia. We'll be afraid to reject the tradition passed on to us, but we will never truly know what it's all about, which is basically, what we were talking about. So let's now move on, because I want to open it up. I want to go through these and then open it up to the group. Let's move on to Velo Bayashan Lamed, and a shy person cannot learn. Julie, I think you need to, Julie, I think you need to, sorry. Can someone, oh, no one can. Okay, Julie. No, okay, I can't see what I wrote. Can somebody unmute themselves and show me what's on the sheet? Oh, Julie? Yeah, there we go. Okay. A shy person.
Sorry, Eve called and we have not connected yet today, and we have an event tonight, so I had to go on the phone with her.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to get your attention.
I
Okay,
was out
a shy person cannot learn. I can relate to this. I bet a lot of you can relate to this. I think we've talked about this before multiple times, but the concept of what shyness really is, that if the fear of being embarrassed or of saying something that you perceive is not smart, or the self of inhibition is leading your show, it's greater than the desire to connect, to grow, to discover truth, then that is a problematic shyness. When you really think about the problem with shyness, and I'm sure many of us struggle with shyness on some level, but when it really interferes, and it does, as someone who's experienced a lot of it, and I'm sure many of you have too, is how many opportunities did I not take because my inhibition weighed more than my desire to try, or my inhibition weighed more than my desire to put myself out there, or my discomfort in my own body and my own skin weighed more than my desire to try something out. So there are beautiful aspects of baishanut, I think the word is, of not timidity, but like of shyness, of a certain modesty. It's actually a very beautiful quality. Alan Marinis really talks about it in the context of humility. He says that there's an aspect of it that really is about making space for other people, giving people space, and knowing when to take your own space and when to give others space. It's actually a very, very beautiful quality. But like all the qualities, we really have to ask ourselves, is my, inwardness, my shyness, my introversion, my whatever it is it serving me, or is it actually weighing so much that it's really getting in the way of trying, of taking new opportunities? So the Rabbeinu Yonah, in fact, says it's a beautiful quality in almost all other areas. but not when it comes to Torah study. So when in other words, Torah study is filled with back and forth and questioning and asking. And even though, Judaism is very interesting because it was based on one seminal event, Mount Sinai, that was witnessed by the whole nation. And the Torah that we received was given to an entire nation. And that nation took the Torah and passed it on to the next generation. So it was called national revelation. So clear that nobody could say, this didn't happen. Like we used to like talk about this all the time in class. Like I could say, I had a dream last night, and you can believe me or you cannot believe me. And then I could say, Julie and I had a dream last night. And Julie can say, actually I didn't, but maybe I did. Maybe I'm losing my mind. But in the Torah, it says 3 million of you received the law of the Torah. And that's the first generation is the generation that's written in the Torah. So I can't say that Julie and I had a dream last night if Julie didn't, but certainly I can't say Julie, Brenda, and I had a dream last night, because Julie and Brenda, did you have that? I didn't have that. So 3 million people received the Torah at Mount Sinai, and that's the generation that is featured, so to speak, in our Torah. So it's based on national, unquestionable revelation. But nevertheless, it's still predicated on constant pushing, questioning, asking, not just accepting things at face value, always actively learning. And this really, testifies to something that we, even on a non-Jewish level, even on just a world level, that people learn actively. It's even though this class is me talking, and I sometimes struggle with that, and then we open it up to the group. In general, we learn when we're active participants in the learning process. So if the fear of being embarrassed weighs more from the desire to learn and grow, that is a problem. And so a person in the constant pursuit of spiritual growth and moral growth, they always have to ask themselves, are my perceptions of myself, is my story about myself keeping, that I'm embarrassed, or I'm not good enough, or I'm not smart enough, or I'm not social enough, or whatever I'm telling myself impacting or weighing more than my desire to grow and move forward? And if it is, I really need to tell myself, a shy person cannot learn. I'm choosing my story about myself, and I'm putting it as preeminent value, as like in front of my desire to learn. So I can't be so shy that I don't move forward because of my inhibitions. And really the same thing is true for teaching. An impatient one can't teach. Julie, can you just go back down on the sheet, the second page? Yeah. And an impatient one cannot teach. And again, I don't think this is just talking about a teacher. I think this is also talking about a parent, and it really is. It's not just a teacher or a parent. It's you in any leadership role that you have in your life, that you cannot transmit any values with impatience. It's something that we learned it's one of the greatest truths about parenting, that if you want to transmit your values, then your children need to like being with you. They need to feel that you enjoy them, that you're interested in them, that when you have an emotional that you have a quality relationship, then they want to cleave to your values. They like being around you. So the first thing that we work on when we want to transmit anything of value to our children is actually the way the relationship actually feels. So the same thing is true with a teacher, that the student, the child, and the employee, the whatever, whoever's on the receiving end of the hierarchy, always has to feel accepted and truly honored without judgment for who they are by the teacher, or else it doesn't go through. Whenever we want to transmit anything, the most important thing to ask is how is the relationship? How close is the relationship? The better the relationship, the easier the transmission. And that is really what Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, said when he said in Mishlei, Chanoch el na'ar al pi darcho, train a child according to his way, educate a child according to his way. What does that mean? Is that it's not generic. It's not just your show and take it or leave it, everybody, but it's really knowing the specific desires, specific inclinations of the child, and really trying to, and we're all children, and trying to meet them at that place, what they're good at, what they're interested in, and teach them from that place. And this is one of the most famous verses about education, that when you educate a child according to their unique intrinsic temperament, their unique interests, based on who they are, you teach them according to the way they learn. We don't all learn the same way. Know them, teach them the way they learn. And then Shlomo HaMelech says, even when he grows old, what does grows old mean? He's not under your roof anymore. He's not your kid anymore that you can say, you go to bed at 8:30, you do this, you do your homework. He is independent of you now. When you train a child according to his way, not your generic sense of how it should be, but what this child, how he learns, what she's truly interested in, then even when she grows old, she won't turn away from it. She'll want your values. They'll want your values when you teach them from a place of understanding, accepting, honoring them uniquely. So a shy person cannot learn, an impatient one cannot teach. And the last two we have, those occupied excessively with business will never become wise. Okay, what does that mean? We know from much of our learning that business is a Jewish phenomenon. I don't need to tell you that there's nothing wrong with being in the world. It's not just that there's nothing wrong with it. We serve Hashem through being in the world. We're meant to be in business. We're meant to be in the marketplace. We don't divorce the physical from the spiritual. We connect to our spirituality through our involvement in the physical world. But the question is, how excessively preoccupied are we with business? If we understand that our central identity are Jewish people yearning to connect to each other and to connect to Hashem through the Torah, and we work as a stockbroker, or we give it our all as a lawyer, or we are totally committed to our teaching, but the central identity is I am a Jew. I am a Jew, and I work as a blank, and that doesn't mean we don't care about it, but we all can be honest. We all can be honest. Take away business and just think, what are the things that really occupy you? What are the things that really occupy you? If the over-occupation separates you from Hashem, then you're not going to become wise. We're supposed to be in the world, but we're supposed to infuse the world with a desire for Hashem. So really, you could even say to yourself, how can my involvement in other matters in my life, if I work at a store, if I'm a teacher, how can I infuse it with spirituality? Because if I excessively involve myself in something divorced from my relationship to God, then I'm not going to get to wisdom. So here we have Rabbi Goldson. There is a necessity to achieve a balance between worldly occupation and Torah study. The critical word here is excessively. Like the boar, a workaholic has lost sight of the very purpose of his existence, to do good, to be good. Like the unlearned person, he fails to provide himself with the necessary intellectual and moral resources to use his accumulated wealth wisely and responsibly. And like the shy student, he misses one opportunity after another to benefit from the wisdom of others. Such a person may ultimately become materially wealthy, but he'll never become wise. What are we missing if we're excessively involved in getting ahead? Okay, and then the last one, and then I want to open it up to the group. In a place where there are no men, endeavor to be a man. Or we can gender, make it available to both genders. In a place where there are no people, strive to be worthy. So this is really, like I said, that before, what this really means is that you don't have to fight every battle. It's impossible to fight every battle, but you really have to do we all have to do soul searching, and we really have to ask ourselves, are there areas where I'm uniquely needed? Where do I have strengths or talents or areas of contribution where I actually, if I don't do it, it won't be done in the way that it potentially could be. There I'm obligated to be worthy, so to speak. If there are other people doing something in amazing ways, we might give money to that, might, pass on that, we might give money to it. But if there is an area, and or if there's a conversation that somebody needs to have, if you feel that there's an area that's under discussed, that's not being discussed, that people are struggling with it, then it's your responsibility to be worthy, to stand up and say, okay, I'm going to take responsibility for this. So sometimes it puts you in vulnerable places. Sometimes you expose yourself a little bit. Sometimes you're forced to be a nonconformist, but it really harkens back to the beginnings of Judaism. And this is really, really important to understand, that if, as Rabbi Bunim says, if the Jewish people had all not stood up and said, no, there are not multiple gods, there's only one God, there's one God who stands outside of time, who created time, who wasn't created by anything before it, who's the source of all reality, that's the God that I'm going to pray to. I don't pray to anything that he created. I only pray to the source of all reality that wasn't created by anything before it, the one and true God. And that's who I bow down to. And I don't bow down to anything else. If the Jewish people didn't have that fortitude, beginning with Abraham, but all throughout the patriarchs and the matriarchs and Mordechai and all the great leaders of our times, if they didn't have that, we would not have a Judaism today. There would be no Judaism today. And the world would be very frightening without Judaism. As Martin Gilbert says so beautifully, the world without the Jews would be a very scary place. The world without Judaism, what Judaism brought to the world, without the morality and the monotheism and the sense of justice and universal education and all the things that are what Martin Gilbert calls the basic moral furniture of our civilization, came from Judaism. And if the great figures of Judaism hadn't said, no, I am not going along with this. If nobody else is going to do it, then I'm going to do it. So that really is all of that. That is true leadership. And I, Rabbi Sachs, Alav Shalom, he talks a lot about this verse, because really look around and ask yourself, what do I really feel is wrong in our world today? Where do I see something that I feel is wrong? And if I really feel that people aren't focused on it, people aren't talking about it, people aren't acknowledging it, then and it's important for me, or it's something that I know, then it's my responsibility. That's where I'm needed. So I think what Hillel is telling you here is, You are not obligated to fight every battle. You'd go crazy. But you are obligated to fight the battles that you are uniquely poised to lead in. And that can often be uncomfortable. So it's something to think about. So I want to open it up to the group. We've got lots of impediment, things that impede us from knowledge. We've got, if I don't know anything, I don't know what I yearn for. If I'm only basing it on tradition, then I can't yearn in a deeper sense. Is my shyness or any story I'm telling myself not smart enough, not good enough, not this enough, not that enough? Is it getting in the way of me taking chances? Am I missing opportunities because I'm giving more weight to my limiting beliefs about myself? Also, an impatient person can't teach. Am I trying to transmit values without deeply respecting and seeing the person to whom I'm trying to get through to? And then we have about the nature of the balance between worldly concerns and Torah. And the last is there an area where I need to stand up? If there's no person, or if there's not enough people, then I have to strive to be a person in this area. And so I want to open it up to the group with our last 10, 12, 15 minutes. Wait, first let me mute myself and tell my son to go to. Okay, I'm back. All right, everybody, your turn. You have four weeks of no classes, so now it's time for you to talk.
Holly, I have a question, but it's more
Hi,
related.
Marilyn.
Hi, it's more related to what's in the book, where it's talking about striving to be worthy. The notes talk about how when Pharaoh tried to make his evil decree to murder the Jewish firstborn sons, Balaam supported the decision. Job was neutral. Yitro opposed it. Balaam was destroyed. Job suffered. Yitro was rewarded. And I just don't understand about Job being neutral in his punishment. I know we always talked about him being a righteous man, but
He remained neutral in that moment. In that incident. What are you asking, Marilyn?
Well, I guess it says Job suffered because he was neutral. He didn't take a position. And I've just, in the reading of Job, I've never heard that he had done anything to deserve his punishment. So I don't quite know what this is about.
I don't know. I definitely know what you mean. First of all, how can we ever say that because I did this, I received this? I mean, I can't answer the part about later punished with horrible sufferings. I'm also a little bit befuddled about that.
Yeah.
But the thing that's coming up for me is that the word neutral reminds me of like the concept of bystander.
I mean, I agree that to be a bystander is wrong. The world was filled with bystanders during the Holocaust. We have bystanders now with the Ukraine conflict. I just don't understand. I've never thought of Job as a bystander or someone who was somehow unworthy. I was just surprised by that.
I can't. I'm more concerned. I mean, don't forget the book of Job takes place at a certain point in his life. That is not this point, but I am a little bit more concerned about saying because he remained neutral, he got these terrible punishments, like almost like we can determine on this on this human plane, that this leads to that is, I find uncomfortable.
Okay, so it's just a little footnote that you are.
I don't know. I mean,
Okay.
they wrote this. I'm not sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, but you're saying this idea of Eov, of Job, is neutral. I don't know. I mean, this was not, when we read the book of Job, it's not this time. So it's a different,
Mhm.
it's a different time in his life. I don't know. I'm not sure, Marilyn.
Okay.
Ally, when did Sota, when was he's the one that said this, right? When was that?
Who?
So he's the one that, it says Sota, the Talmudic passage.
Oh, that's a Masechta. Yeah, that's a part of that's in the Talmud.
Is that a person?
No, so when
No?
when you have in parentheses sota, or you have pesachit, with different words, it's the tractates. It's a name of a tractate of the Talmud.
Okay, so who
Yeah.
wrote that?
Well, it's from the Talmud. So it's in the verse sota. So if you went to that verse, it would say which of the sages said it.
Oh, okay, so maybe
Yeah.
it was his
Yeah,
understanding.
you could go back,
like
Carolyn.
a vision of the person who wrote that later.
Well, if you really, like, if Marilyn really wanted to know what this is really bothering me, you could go to that verse and see what it meant. What does it mean? Job was neutral. What does that mean? Maybe there's more. It's true. Maybe there's more to it. I'm sure there is. Anyone else?
I did have a little bit of a question with like the first one. Because I thought it was kind of very important in Judaism that you first do and then
Yeah.
learn.
Yeah.
I've heard that many times. It's obviously in this context not what they're saying.
So you're probably referring to the idea of panemius hatzonius misoret panemius, which means like the outside action awakens the inner feeling. Like,
Right.
let's say you're feeling sad, smile and talk to people with a smile, and that will awaken, an inner happiness. Or if you feel stingy, Maimonides says, put your hand in the tzedakah box, give tzedakah, and hopefully it will awaken a sense of desire to give. I think part of that concept of do the action first is, if we wait until we're feeling pious or generous or holy or kind to do the right thing, then we might be waiting forever.
Right.
But I think that that does not mean that just think about it in your own life. Think about when you relied on willpower to break a habit, and ask yourself, like, how long does that last? Because it lasts as long as the willpower lasts. But, for anyone who's tried to exercise and then, whatever it was. But so the idea here is, I can't just desire a relationship with Hashem. I need to know why I benefit from a relationship with Hashem. I need to understand who Hashem is, what it means for a finite person to have a relationship with the infinite. I can't awaken in myself those feelings if I don't know what it would be like an airplane flying to a destination unknown. Like, if you don't have an ultimate destination, you don't know which way to go. So I don't think it gets in the way. I think that the main thing is the deed. You've heard that before. Like, the main thing is just do it. But I think that's more about the idea that we cannot wait for our feelings to be perfectly aligned before we do the right thing. We must do the right thing, and hopefully our feelings will catch up. But that's a little bit of a different idea.
Mhm.
I don't know if that answered.
You did.
Oh, thanks.
But I'm thinking personally, like with candle lighting.
Yeah. Okay.
I
Talk
didn't
about
know
that.
the details of candle
Bye,
lighting
Marilyn.
until I lit them. And the more I lit them every Friday night, the more I did want to learn about what this, you know, the story is with the candle lighting.
So you're saying first I did it.
Right. Right. With certain things.
It
Some-
may, I'm saying, I'm not reading this in a Torah source, but I'm thinking out loud. Maybe when it comes to taking on a good, maybe when it, no, I don't really think that's true. Like, let's say you want to start running. If you just start running, I don't know. I was thinking based on what you were saying, maybe when it comes to taking on something good versus stopping yourself from doing something destructive. I'm not really sure. I don't know. I don't know. And also, Carolyn, don't underestimate that actually before you probably made that initial decision to light candles, don't underestimate what learning you had already done.
Mhm.
Chances are you had actually, you can't, it doesn't come out of nowhere. You probably are underestimating the learning that you actually did that led you to that point of desire.
Mhm. It's one of
And
the
then
things I
that
love
action
about
awakened the desire to do more. Yeah,
One of the-
sorry.
one of the things I love about Judaism is every answer has a place, or different answers has a place in your life.
Hmm.
You know,
Meaning what? Give an example.
well, that's the, you know, in other words, you, in some situations, do this first, in other situations, learn. You know, like depending upon whatever situation it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, right. Right.
Now-
Right. Hi, Hannah.
Hi, I was gonna say, as you were talking, that, you know, I grew up very, very secular with shrimp and lobster. And I remember when I started the journey and how difficult it was for me to stop doing all that, trafe and all that. But now, the more I do it, the more I realize, and then I started studying about it and studying, going more to shul and, you know, and it's kind of that thing that it just keeping kosher is like opened a whole new world for me.
Mhm.
Is that what you're talking about? It's like,
Yes.
and then, you know, like, why are we doing that? And to me, the main thing about kashrut is that I feel like my grandparents did it. Their grandparents did it.
Mhm.
I belong to like a community that we've all done it. And because of that, you know, like I'll go out, I still eat in restaurants, but I won't have any, you know, like I'll have a salad or you know, cold fish. But when I go out with my friends that are like me and we all do the same thing, it's wonderful because I feel like I belong. And when I go out with friends that don't, they always say, do you mind if I, you know, and I'm like, I don't mind, it's not my life, you know, so it's kind of what you're talking about. And then, you know,
Yeah.
into shul, you know, so it's like this whole thing about kashrut has opened like a whole new world for me.
It's very interesting. And what you said about your parents and your grandparents, that's also like we say that in the Shemona Esrei. We say when we daven to Hashem, we say Elokei, Elokeinu, Pirkei Avotenu. You're my God and you're the God of my fathers. Meaning I relate to you both in my own unique relationship with you, and also the fact that you were my grandmother's God and my great-grandmother's God and my great-great-grandmother's God. So a Jew has like two aspects. They have the unique personal relationship, and then they have the part of just what you said, Hannah, which is I really like that I'm keeping the same holy diet that my grandmother kept. So we actually say that in the Shemona Esrei. We say Elokeinu, Pirkei Avotenu, my God, our God, and the God of my grandmother and my great grandmother and my great, you know, because there's two that they both matter. They're both very powerful. So I hear in your kosher journey, Elokeinu v'Pirkei Avotenu. It's my journey, and I'm linking up to everybody who came before me, which is
It's
also
tradition.
very powerful.
It's tradition.
Well, yeah, except for don't forget an Amha Arts cannot be pious. You can't just do it because because my grandma did it. Why did my grandma do it? You know, I think the mistake that Tevya the Milkman made, not that he ever asked me what I thought of him, but is that he did it because his grandfather did it.
Right.
Tradition. But you
Right.
have to say, my grandmother did it, but why? Well, her grandmother did it. And why? Well, her grandmother, why? And the why has to be there, which is why it does not say Pirkei Avotenu, the God of our ancestors. It has to also be my God, because there's value and meaning in the relationship, but also because it's the God of our people. So, it's both. It's both.
And the other thing real quick that I really get out of it is how I have been teaching and helping other people indirectly, like they'll say, why are you doing that? And then I explain it. So it really means a lot to me that I can not influence, but I can use what I have learned teaching. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and if they're receiving it, not that you say it and they do it, but if they're receiving it, then like the Mishnah says, an impatient person cannot teach. That if they're receiving something you're saying, it's because you're respecting them. You're seeing them. The minute you don't see them, respect that they have their own choices, then they will not learn from you. So that's also in our Mishnah. Hi, Donna Hirsch. I didn't say hello to you. Hi, Stephen.
Hi, Ailey. This whole idea of tradition is kind of interesting in terms of passing on tradition from one generation to the next. Now, I don't have a Jewish background. I don't know very much about it, but I think I have observed, and one of the things that I have observed is that families get involved with synagogue when kids are getting ready for bar mitzvah. There's a couple of years of preparation. They have the bar mitzvah, and then they don't go back. I've seen it time and time again. So I guess my question is, how do you pass it on in a way that kids embrace it and make it theirs? How do you answer the question why in a way that's meaningful, so that rather than being repelled, they're attracted to? And I really struggle a lot with that. I don't see that happening very much.
You when you look out there, you don't see that happening.
Well, I guess I sometimes do, because I live not far from an Orthodox community. As a matter of fact, I just had a call from the Tefillin ambusher the other day, wanting to know if I want to get together and do it again.
That's funny, Steve.
But I think, though, for the most part, I think that there's not a deep connection. I think at some point people come back later in life because it's familiar. It's familiar, but I think it's a struggle for all generations to pass on their love and appreciation for things, whatever they may be, to the next generation, without creating a lot of pushback.
Yeah,
That's part of the job of youth, right? Is to be.
What'd you say?
It's part of your job as a young kid, is to indulge your independence, to push back against the things that are passed down to you.
No, you're bringing up like probably one of the biggest issues of life. I think our Mishnah, what'd you say? You're muted.
Of course, I bring up the biggest issues of life. What
so
else?
superficial.
Right.
Yeah, right. I think we should open it up to people here. I mean, how can you pass things on in a way that sticks?
Ellie, can I say something about that? My son grew up in Bethel in Highland Park, and he refuses to step foot there. I'm in not an Orthodox synagogue in Arizona. We started 10 years ago with 40 families. We have over 300. We just started a Hebrew school. And let me tell you, my son loves going. I personally think that it has a lot to do with the rabbis, because they don't attract young people. Like, you have to be quiet, you have to do this. And also, like my rabbi here, he embraces people. He's like, like he calls the kids twice during services, the kids go up and sing. And like doing Passover for the Seder, the kids, he did both nights at the shul. We had 100 people at each one of the Seders. And you know what? Kids did not want to leave. I left at 11:30 p.m. and they were staying. And I honestly think maybe I'm, because of what I'm going through here, if the rabbis would involve the communities more. And I think you people, the L'chaim Center, has also done a phenomenal job. I really believe that, because I see people that I've met, over the years that also came from a background like I did and really are embracing Judaism. So I think in my opinion, it's really up to the leaders of the community, because I think they're doing a good job. I'm sorry to say, but like my son, when he comes here, can we go see Rabbi Alush? That is so unusual for a 33-year-old. And he also liked coming to your shul. I mean, I brought him for one of the holidays and he really enjoyed it. So you guys are doing a great job. But, I think that, I hate to say it again, but Judaism has become such a wishy-washy religion, not the Orthodox movement. But anyway, I hate to say that. But I think it's really up to the leaders of the Jewish community. And, but anyway, that's pretty much what I have to say.
Yeah. And Hannah's point kind of goes to the end of the Mishnah, which is saying that if you see that there's a need, if you see there's a vacuum of leadership, then somehow you have to step up. So yeah, it's very important what you're saying, Stephen. And you can't pass on what you don't love, which you don't. And I think that is a huge issue, is that if parents have a lot of ambivalence about their Judaism, they'll pass that on. But I also think that you can't pass on what you love if you don't see the person, if you don't accept and celebrate the person for who they are. So my guess is Hannah's son, when he walks into Rav Alush's synagogue, doesn't feel that Rav Alush has an agenda with him. He probably feels he sees him and just thinks he's wonderful for who he is. I think the combination of loving your Judaism and really having true, not just acceptance, but like celebration of who the person is. Those two things weigh a lot. They weigh a lot. I think that's what it means, that a kapdan. It doesn't mean impatient. I think it's like someone who, how do you say it, Hannah? And yeah, it's like
Say what?
Kapdan.
Oh, to keep?
No, kapdan. Like a kapdan. It's like, it's not impatient. It's like, I don't know. It's like bullheaded. Like I'm pushing my agenda through and I don't see you. I see how I want to change you. I want you to see the light. I want you to see the light. I don't see you. I don't love you. I'm not in a relationship with you. I'm in a relationship with who I want you to be. And when a person feels I don't need to tell you this, but they're on the receiving end of that kind of agenda, they push back. That's where defensiveness comes in. So I think when you put the combination of loving your Judaism, but also truly loving and honoring who the person is for themselves. So what were you going to say?
Well, no, I was going to say, and I've said it before many times, that, when we met so many Orthodox people, because my daughter and son-in-law became religious, and no one ever tried to yank us in. They knew who we were, respected us for being supportive of our daughter, and just, if we came along, great. Nobody ever tried to be influential about it. So we're looking at who we were.
Very much so, Sue. And that's,
right.
I think, the generation that left Judaism, like maybe your parents' generation, right? For a lot of them, there was this sense of, there's no me. There's what my parents want me to be, but they're not seeing me. So that's that the minute you have that, you lost. And that's what Sue felt the opposite of. She felt seen and respected and loved for who she was. So she was open, and Bob was open.
I totally agree with Sue, because I'll give you another example. This Shabbat, we had a bar mitzvah of a converso family, It was amazing. There were so many people, but there were a couple of people using their cell phones. And one of them put the phone on her siddur in the service. So I said to Rabbi Alush, I said, should I have said something? He says, no, you never want to embarrass another person. And to me, it meant so much for him to be so accepting of somebody. He says, they probably don't know, they wouldn't do it. So I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
another-
And if the rabbi had said, take your cell phone, please, off then the
He
person
wouldn't
would
do it.
forget everything else. And
Right.
10 years later, the only memory they would have is, oh my gosh, when the rabbi, there was like 175 people and the rabbi came right
Right.
up to me and asked me to take
Right.
the phone off. That is the only thing that they, you remember, like,
right,
you
right. Well,
remember
that's-
the one thing. So it's
Right.
true.
Well, that's what the rabbi, and he always says that. He says, if you want to have, what's it called? When you get people to come to you, the outreach, you've got to go and tell them like, be nice, be kind, don't criticize. And there was one synagogue, and I want to mention, that I used to go to, and the rabbi always says, Hannah, if you see somebody on the phone, tell them to put it away. And I was never comfortable doing that. But
Yeah, right.
Rabbi Lush said, no, Hannah, according to the Torah, you don't want to embarrass people. And to me, that's a true rabbi that has taught me a lot. And of course, you
Yeah.
guys taught me a lot too. You remember how I used to be? Maybe you don't.
I loved you always. I don't remember how I used to be. You probably remember how I used to be. I don't. I just think it's
Anyway,
great.
well, anyway, I have to thank you all for
All
what you're
good.
doing.
Thank you. All right, everybody. It was great to see everyone.
You too. We missed you. I talked to your mom today.
I miss. Oh, nice. That's super. You called her?
Yeah, I called her because I was feeling
Lovely.
guilty. I hadn't talked to her for a while.
Thank you. That's super nice. And she answered?
Yeah, we had a nice talk.
So nice. I'm happy to hear that. Thank you so much. I mean, not thank you, but that's so nice. All right,
Bye.
everybody.
See you
Love
next
to
week.
all. I miss you
Bye.
all.
Thank you so much. Good to see you. Nice to see you. It's nice to see
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Bye.
Adrian, I'll take
Bye-bye.
a picture of me and Pam, and we wish you were there too. But I mean, I'll send
And
you a
have a
photo.
great trip for those who are going.